So there's a secret to releasing trauma from your body, but it's something that very few people are aware of, or if they are, they tend to dismiss it out of hand. It's not meditation, it's not journaling, it's not gratitude lists, it's not, I'd say 99% of what passes for self-help in the modern Western world. It's none of those things. There are aspects that can help, but I did all of those things for a long time, for 10 years, and I was still extremely stuck because of all the stuff, all the trauma, all the stress that was still in my body. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. My name is John Wood. I'm the founder of RageChart, where I help people to regulate their nervous system and feel and become more alive than ever before. Now, the first thing that we need to talk about is what the hell is trauma, right? Before we can talk about the secret to releasing trauma from your body, we have to define what the hell is trauma? What even is this thing called trauma? Because if I talk to, say, a close friend, a friend of mine about trauma, and I'm thinking of specific people in my life, if I say, hey, have you ever thought about doing trauma work? Most of them are going to turn around and say, oh, no, I don't have any trauma. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. And in some ways I get it. I get where they're coming from, because trauma for most people means, a car accident. It means war. It means rape. It means very severe. It also refers to the event, like something really bad happened and it was usually one thing. That's what most people think about trauma is. So if they can't remember being, say, raped, or remember going to war, or remember some crazy car accident, if they're like, well, my life was, pretty good. It wasn't perfect, but there was nothing major. People tend to think, hey, well, I just don't have trauma, so I don't need to do trauma work, right? These days, I tend to see that as a bit of I think it's resistance. Just talking about this topic, talking about trauma starts to stir it up. Now, this is where the new definition. Now, we can all define words differently. I'm not saying this is literally what trauma is, but the most helpful definition that I have heard for what trauma is that it's not the event, right? It's not what happened to us. It's not war or rape or a car accident. Trauma is not in the event. Trauma is essentially the stored emotion or stress from that event. So when say you were in a car accident and you wanted to burst into tears afterwards, it might not have even had to be very severe, but you wanted to burst into tears and you didn't. Where does all that sadness go? All that grief, that shock, or that emotion that wanted to come through you in that moment, does it evaporate, or does it just wait for another day when it can come out? Or think about a 5-year-old who falls over on their bicycle. It's a girl or a boy, it doesn't really matter. They fall over, they want to cry, but one of the parents comes over and says, hey, don't cry, get up, you're okay, just keep going. And doesn't actually allow the child, the little one, to let the emotion out. Probably because the parent's uncomfortable with it, right? I think a lot of parents do this. They don't know how to feel their own sadness or their own grief or their own anger. So when it comes out in their kids, they're like, it triggers their own stuff and they shut it down in the kids. So the point is, trauma is not the thing. It's not the falling off your bike. It's not the car accident. Trauma is the stress, that emotion that was not processed at the time of the event. You wanted to cry, but you didn't. You wanted to run away, but you didn't. You wanted to attack your parents and kill them, which is an understandable thing, especially if your parents are neglectful or abusive or manipulative, but you didn't. And so all that energy, think about anger or rage. If someone, a lot of parents, they can, I've been through it, where people can be manipulative. They can say things, guilt trip, gaslight, emotional abuse, right? Then you have physical abuse, violence, rape, sexual things, or even just a parent who's just not really present. They're just not really there. Now, I would say all these things can be traumatic in that they cause trauma, but what they're causing, all these situations, is a survival response in the individual who wants to run away, who wants to attack, who wants to survive. And a lot of the time, the person, when we're in those situations, we don't get a chance to process the trauma. And so it gets stuck, right? And I mean, this idea of trauma getting stuck, energy, emotion being stuck in the body, I think seems to be gaining some more mainstream acceptance with books like The Body Keeps the Score or Gabor Mate's When the Body Says No. But still, I mean, I think if you're at all skeptical about this idea that energy and emotion, what I'm calling trauma, what's called trauma in the nervous system healing world, if you're at all skeptical that can be, that's a thing, that are actually getting stuck, just think about getting triggered. How is it that someone can say something that pushes your buttons? We all have buttons, right? Emotional triggers, things that people can say that just set us off, whether it's anger or whatever it happens to be, whatever the trigger, whatever the emotion that we go into, a shame spiral or anger or sadness or fear. We all have our different ways of, coping and surviving in this way. And so I think that to me is pretty clear evidence that stuff gets stuck, right? And this is why, I believe, in my experience, is really what's creating all these mental health issues. And they've seen this. There's an adverse childhood experiences study which basically looks at the more adverse childhood experiences, so experiences of neglect, abuse, all the different, difficult experiences that kids can go through when they're kids, has a very, very strong correlation with chronic illness, disease, anxiety, depression, all these sorts of issues as well. And this is why trauma is in the energy of these events, the energy that these events cause that we couldn't process at the time. The energy is then causing problems, right? Whether it's like, you might have bad skin, bad digestion, anxiety, depression, all the different issues. We're all configured differently. So my system processes, or we could say mitigates or manages or responds to an overwhelming sense of stress in a different way to yours. Some people end up with like a chronic illness. Some people will have mental stuff. It's different for everyone. But the point is that this stress, this trauma, this energy from the past that was not processed is still there. Now, if you think about what this is, and we say the secret to releasing trauma from your body, why would we want to release it from the body? Why can't we just do it through the mind? Like the whole mental health industry, I call it mental health because I'm like, this shit's not mental. Like it's not just a mental thing. Crying is not a mental thing. Like if you have grief is like this felt experience. It's not a thing you can write about it, sure, and that might help. That might help you understand it a little bit better. Probably the main thing you need to do is just go have a really epic, snotty, messy cry, right? And that's a physical thing. Like you've got the tears coming out of your face, you're convulsing through, if it's a big cry, you've got the, like these convulsions going through the chest and through the abdomen. It's like, think about laughing, how your belly can hurt. Like it's a full body thing. That's sadness, right? If you think about fear, anger. Fear to me is the energy that makes us want to run away, to get away to safety. Anger is we're going to destroy the threat, and that's how we're going to find our safety. These are all physical things. I don't know why we call it mental health, because it's not mental. We could say anxiety, but anxiety is just like that pent-up survival stress that has nowhere to go. So we're just always like on edge. We're like, we can't relax, so we're anxious. So it's not really a mental thing. It's a nervous system thing. It's a full body thing of a bunch of stress that has been unprocessed that is stuck in the body. Now, all of that is just to lay some foundation, lay some context for, number one, what is trauma, right? It's all the stored stuff from the past, all the stored energy that's unprocessed, unfelt, unexpressed. And then was more just going on a rant then about how that's why we have the body. This is why we want to release it from the body, because a lot of it is stored in the body. You can do it with the thoughts, the beliefs, you can journal it and see a talk therapist and do that stuff. But there's something to be said for just getting into the physical aspect of it. And for me, this has happened with fear, with rage. Now it's happening with shame. Like it's amazing what you can process with your body. So as for the secret, if there is a secret, what would I say the secret is? The secret to me is probably that, number one, the trauma is stored in the body. A lot of the stuff that we're dealing with is in the body. It's not in the mind. Well, the mind to me is like a reflection of what's happening in the body. The mind can create stuff in the body too. They kind of go back and forth, but so much is happening down here. As for the secret, there's a lot of different things. If I was to say this, look, there's no one secret to releasing trauma from the body. There's no one weird trick, one crazy secret, one hack, one quick fix. There's not one thing, one secret that I can give you that will just release trauma from the body. In reality, it's a whole lot of things. It's lots of little things. It's a couple of big things. It's, for example, when I explain it to people, the way I teach this to people, the way it's worked in my own life, the thing that's allowed me, maybe I'll speak like that, the thing that's allowed me to release trauma from my own body was not one thing. There's not one secret. It's not quick. It's not this overnight thing. It's not a vagus nerve exercise or a trauma release exercise. It's not like you can't watch a video and get this, let's pull your ears, do a breath like, it might help you a little bit, but the secret is that stuff is it's like magic bullets. I don't know if it's a waste of time, but it's certainly not the secret. The secret is, I would say that very few people know this, by the way, but the secret, if there is one, is that it takes education. You really need to understand a lot of what we've talked about in this video. You need to start to figure out, understand the physiology of your autonomic nervous system, of your survival physiology. So what is fight and flight and freeze and collapse? How do they work? Why is it that, for example, we pick up so much from our parents, right? Why? Like, there is so much to go into. This is hours and hours of lectures, days probably, to really learn and go deep on this stuff. But education is a huge piece of the puzzle, and that's not a quick thing. That's not like one little secret. Learning about your nervous system, a non-dumbed down, a fairly sciencey way of understanding your nervous system and all of this stuff, because that gives you the confidence and the understanding and the context to know what's happening when something comes up. Instead of being afraid of it and shutting it down, you can be like, oh, I know what's happening. Yeah, that's right. I learned about this. My system's moving into sympathetic activation. Now I'm feeling a bit of that. Okay, I can feel the rage coming up. So it's this technique. So the education is a huge piece of the puzzle. I cannot overstate just how essential it is to this process. And that's why one little exercise is not going to fix you. It's not going to release trauma from your body. So education. 2 is learn how to feel. This is something that took me so long to understand, but learn how to feel. What I mean by that is most of us live in our heads. We make our decisions from our heads. We think about everything. We journal about everything. But there is so much wisdom down here. I mean, the head is the body too, to be honest. There's so much wisdom in sensation and in feeling. And it starts with, when you need to go to the bathroom, do you go? When you're hungry, do you eat? When you're thirsty, do you drink? And when you're tired, do you sleep? Or do you ignore these impulses, these signs, these feelings from your body on what to do? Because if you can't feel those things, if you're not paying attention to them, and not just listening, but acting on them, right? So you can feel like you need to go to the bathroom and then distract yourself for 3 hours and then get to the point where you're like, oh, I've got to go, and then you're running to the bathroom because you've held on for so long. If you do that, or if you do that with hunger, you distract yourself, you get into work, you're overriding, you're learning, you're practicing disconnecting, disassociating from what your body is saying. And that's only reinforcing these problems, right? You could say that's a secret to releasing trauma from the body, is you have to get really connected to your body. And you don't go straight into the trauma. You start with these more basic biological things, like the pressure in the groin when you want to go to the bathroom. When you feel that, go to the bathroom. Because if you ignore that, if you override that and disconnect from that and distract yourself from that, what do you think you're going to do when you feel like a more subtle impulse to cry, to feel disgust, to rage? What do you think you're going to do? Because these impulses are often a bit more subtle than these more basic biological ones. And that's why I say it starts there. And then from there, you gradually get better over time at feeling, at tuning in to, oh, okay, I feel this this tension in my cheeks right now. What is that? What does my upper lip want to do? Like, you get better at feeling that, I feel like an impulse to go down this street today instead of that one, to eat this food instead of that food, to call that person. I feel like an impulse towards this career. I feel like this is what I'm meant to be doing. You're going to miss all that unless you're actually paying attention to your basic biological impulses. All right, alongside that is things like, can you feel the ground? Can you do that can you notice the environment and feel the ground at the same time? Can you notice your breath? Can you notice your breath while feeling the ground? All right, it's not one technique, it's not one practice. If I had to boil it down, it's just feeling, learning how to feel, getting better at feeling. Now, if you want to feel better, I don't know who said this, but if you want to feel better, get better at feeling, right? And on that note, actually, I think some people think to release trauma from the body, we're going to go dive into the thing. We're going to dig that thing up. And there are techniques for that. But by and large, though, I would say it's not worth it. I would not recommend it. Because you can bring stuff up before it's ready, before you're ready, before you have the capacity to integrate it. That's not much fun, right? You can be overwhelmed. It can re-traumatize your system. A better approach is what I'm outlining here is you get the education on board, you get the learn how to feel, starting with your basic biological impulses, and then you keep cultivating that and practicing that, and things come up in their own time. Things will just pop up. Life just happens. Like, it will come up when you're ready. And if you're not ready, well, you're not ready. So that's two things. The third thing is you have to believe that it's possible for you, and that you deserve to be healthy, happy, and whole. If you don't believe you deserve it, you don't believe it's possible, you're not going to put in the time to actually do the work. Okay? So that's a little bit of a ramble on the secret of no secrets to releasing trauma from your body, on how to heal trauma. If you want to learn more about this, more about how I work with people to regulate their nervous systems, go to rageheart.co. That's like Braveheart, but rageheart.co. Sign up for the free email series, and I'll show you how to get started. Bye for now.